Randomly with Ronnie Jr.
All right, now I gotta have that conversation with somebody who moves so quickly in the best way possible. Erin Ashley Simon has done this, she's done that. There's so many things to talk about. I know she comes from a background as a college athlete, so her dedication in any project she works on is gonna be pretty fierce. She has been really making some waves within the gaming industry, the podcast industry, ///. Erin, how are you? And how would you describe what you do these days?
Hi, well, thank you so much. I'm doing well, and in terms of I would just say that for me, in terms of what I'm doing, I'm just someone who wants to impact the culture and community when it comes to esports and gaming. Whether it's via podcast, whether it's via video. I think for me, ultimately, like whatever industry that I've been in, and I've worked in so many different industries, gaming, sports, music. I really, no matter what, try to leave a lasting impact and to leave a legacy. So ultimately, I'm just someone who just wants to leave a good legacy within whatever community that I'm tapping into.
Yeah, and that's why it was important for me to mention she is a college athlete. You know, that was a bit of her history. And when you talk to those people, there's just a dedication that's like no other. Now, where I got inspiration with Erin was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. I was working on a program, American Latino TV, and we did a profile on Erin's story. And she's just, again, very fierce, very dedicated. And at that time, the reason I brought you onto this platform here, Erin, is because not only when we were on camera, but when we were off camera as well, you just talked about like how you attacked your goals. And it really was inspirational for, how do I say it, somebody young and spry like yourself to lead the charge. And I will be honest, I had a little bit of that resistance, you know, and you hear other people, you know, who are at a certain age, we just kind of don't want to mess with the digital. We don't want to mess with the create it yourself kind of thing. Ego, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I wanted to tell you that your words stuck with me. And every time I see you succeed and, you know, little posts like you'll tease like, oh, on Instagram, come Monday, I have a huge announcement. And she signed with a new agent. It has always resonated that you made that proclamation early that you were going to succeed, and then it just keeps on happening. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
Can you tell me about the world of gaming, esports? Because I literally haven't played a video game since like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, if you will. Maybe Sonic the Hedgehog and a lot of Mario Brothers. So I don't even know, A, what's going on, and B, like you say it's a community, it's a culture. Like what the heck is happening in gaming?
So gaming overall, it's interesting because you have the main header, quote unquote, which is gaming. And then you have the subcultures or like the sub communities within it. So like, for example, if gaming is the overarching theme, that's kind of like, okay, I game, I play Final Fantasy VII Remake, I play Call of Duty. Then within that, you have esports. Esports is the competitive gaming side. And esports has its own communities where it's broken down into competitive scenes. So the same way that like you have sports and it's broken down to Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, right. The same thing is for esports where it's broken down to the competitive league for Call of Duty, the competitive league for a game called Overwatch, the competitive league for a game called League of Legends. And then within those, you have the teams, and with those teams, they have their fans, and it's honestly it's very similar to traditional sports, and even some of the formats that we see with traditional sports, like the home and away concept, we see that with esports, but they call them home stands in certain competitive scenes. And even with the development of college competitive esports, that's also being developed as well. And so it's really cool to see just that aspect, that there's synergy between those esports and traditional sports, but that's also because we're starting to see people from traditional sports move over. And then, of course, you have other tying communities, like a part of it. Like you have your cosplayers who are like cosplayers and gamers. Then you have the Black content creators, the Latinos. You just have everyone, and it's just like you have your little different communities within this overarching theme of gaming, and just essentially like all the communities come together in some shape or form because we all love to play video games. And so that's why it's broken down. It seems like it's broken down into a whole lot, but it's not. I mean, it's the same thing as what you see in music, right? Everyone loves music, but some people love hip hop, some people love pop, some people like rock. It's the same thing for gaming. And in terms of the gaming news, I mean, the gaming industry and the esports industry were hit just like any other industry during this COVID-19 or quarantine, everything like that. So I think that, but we've had a little bit of an easier transition because we have the ability to put things online and to continue doing certain events and certain things online. So it is kind of like a silver lining. It's like a little shining light moment. But gaming is still, slow. The news is a little bit slow. Competitive scenes aren't all going. Some are still, some change format to completely online. And everyone's just adjusting. Yeah. And the same way that everyone's adjusting in every single other industry. But even before then, things were starting to move. A lot of brands were starting to get into the esports scene. Like Louis Vuitton got associated with this competitive scene for a game called League of Legends. And if you know League of Legends, like Louis Vuitton has like a high-end brand and then a video game. It was like, wow, we were all surprised. And honestly, like when it comes to gaming and esports, there's really no like quote unquote high tier brand, like how we see with the coaches, the Gucci's and stuff. Like you can't, it's interesting to see how these brands don't take on those similar philosophies in terms of who they sell to, and they find ways to integrate themselves into esports or gaming. And we're starting to see so many different brands do the same. And the same way that we've seen the transformation of hip hop into pop culture, we're starting to see even more of a transition of gaming and more specifically esports into that pop culture. I mean, gaming and pop culture have always been hand in hand, but now we're starting to see esports is now becoming that popular culture, that popular thing. The same way that we saw how it happened to hip hop.
Well, yeah, gaming, I feel, and I always get my words mixed up. What's gaming? What's esports? I'm not 100% sure on the difference, but gaming, to some degree, like you go on any YouTube music video or audio or Spotify or anything, and you'll see a list of comments, and a lot of people will have heard the music initially from this world. Like, and when I started to see those comments in YouTube, for certain songs, I was like, oh my gosh, this audience is continuing to blow. Why do you think there was a resistance? Because a second ago you said that some of the traditional athletes are now crossing over. What was the resistance? Is it as obvious as what I think, which is they didn't take it seriously and now they are? Or why do you think they took a while to cross over?
So I don't think it's them per se. I think it was the people around them. Athletes have always been gamers, and for myself, I've been around enough athletes who are professionals right now to know that they've always been interested in playing video games. It's just now it's becoming more acceptable for professional athletes to also be gamers. People always have that notion that if you're a professional athlete and you play video games that you're distracted, or if you lose a match, it's probably because you're playing too much video games and like all this stuff. Now, I mean, it's important to say too much of anything is bad. It's just anything. That's just what it is. But what they don't understand is these athletes are very limited in terms of what they can do, and video games are an outlet. If you're training and doing something over and over and over again, you need a break. The same way that you see streamers that some of them play the same game over and over again, they'll play other games just to take a break. The same way that if you're professional and you're doing something over and over again, and come weekend, you don't want to do your job. Why? Because you need a break. Athletes are the same thing. So they need that outlet. And I think that because we're starting to see esports and just gaming in general being implemented in so many different areas of different industries and utilized for, mental health studies and utilized for, arenas and stuff like that. It's kind of like they have no choice. The same way that people try to deny hip hop and say that hip hop is so bad for kids and stuff like that. Too bad. The community has made it popular. So you either get on board or you don't. And I think at this point, it's that. You either get on board or you don't. And especially now when the very few content options that people have is gaming and competitive gaming, right? And so it's even now people are forced. ESPN, Fox, all those people, what kind of content they're putting up? They're putting esports. They're putting gaming content up. Why? Because they have no choice. And I think that at this point, because people are more are able to see the content more, and also I think because people literally just don't have any choice. It's either you watch it or you turn your TV off. I think that they have a newfound respect for it. And I think that people realize, especially when you see the people from traditional sports who are putting on these events and people who are doing gaming stuff, they realize that it's not an easy thing to do. It's not like, oh, let's just get it recorded and turn their PlayStation or PC on and let them play. No, there's so many intricate things that go into streaming, that go into competitive scene. It's a lot. And so I think that certain people are starting to realize and have a newfound respect for it. And because of that, people are respecting the athletes, professional athletes from traditional sports side that are getting themselves more immersed in it. And that's going to continue to change. And now, because all athletes really have is to play video games as a way to just cope with what's going on right now, more and more of them are doing it, and more of them getting involved in events. And now you're starting to see a lot of top players play video games. A lot of women athletes play video games. And so now it's just like they're at a point where it's like, no, we're going to do this because it's one of the very few content exposure opportunities we have. And at this point, it's, if you follow them as a fan or you follow them from traditional, sports leagues, you have no choice at this point. So I think that after everything's said and done, with the quarantine and when things go back to some sort of normalcy, I think that people's perspective when it comes to changing is going to be changing a lot more. And it was already on that trajectory. But I think because of the limited amount of content and resources and opportunities there are right now, and gaming being one of those big pivotal ones, I think that it's going to be that process of people accepting it more is going to be expedited even more.
Going back to let's say the exciting moments in these big events, what was that like for you to cover it? I mean, I know just in general, you had come into this world and done so well, quite a lot of success. But I do think there's like a difference between your normal day-to-day covering this content and then these huge, I guess, like conventions. How fast is that? How did that make you a better host? And what did you learn from that experience? Because it seems freaking as electric as hosting maybe like a music festival, or if not more. And it seemed like you did it and had a good time at that.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to, even before when I was doing content work for, even if it's music festival or traditional sports, there are still similarities in terms of coverage, right? Knowing the players, knowing the team information, knowing how they play, knowing the certain terminology, also knowing your lane as a host or a journalist. And even before I came into the scene, I knew what my role was. There's already specialists in every single pretty much top video game. And there's already top casters and analysts. But that's what I was like, okay, I don't see the lane when it comes to speaking about cultures, identifying and highlighting different groups, different communities, human interest stories. And that's something that has always been a challenge because esports, more specifically, is so segmented. Like if they like Fortnite, all they give a crap about is Fortnite. If they like Call of Duty, all they give a crap about is Call of Duty. But I've been figuring out ways to make people actually give a crap about people's stories, who they are, their own gaming passions, and the connection of their gaming passion with their music passion, and just all this stuff. And so when I knew what lane I wanted to go into, I knew exactly the kind of content I wanted to do. And then I also knew how to handle coverage, right? And instantly, I did all the research I could do. I attended events. I researched. I just watched and listened. And then I have friends over time that educated me on different areas because no one expects you to know every single game and no one expects you to know every single community. So it's okay for you to ask questions. As long as you're taking the time to learn and understand from a basic foundation, that's the most important thing. And that's what I had to do for my job. Whether I had to talk about Hearthstone or the Dota 2 scene, I had to have a basic understanding of what was going on. Even if I couldn't speak to certain terminologies and et cetera, if I can express it and explain it in a way that I understand and I think the audience would understand, that's all that mattered. And so coming in, I think the difference between the covering gaming and esports is that people are more open to people coming in as long as you are genuine and you just take your time to understand the communities and learn and give respect to the people who paved the way. And a lot of people who are in certain positions are young because like esports is a young industry, and even to a certain extent, like the gaming industry in certain areas is still young. And so you see a lot of young people in different positions. And that's the one thing that you don't see in traditional sports. All the ones who have the top broadcast, they're older. You can't be 20 and be, primetime TV show for ESPN because they don't allow that. But you can do that for esports. You can be 28 years old and be the head and face of a gaming program or a gaming show or something like that. So I think that, with me covering the industry and just finding my way, I've learned over time that it's not that much different from traditional sports, but I feel like there's so much opportunities when you understand what your lane is. And more specifically, I understood that I'm a woman of color. There's not that many women of color who are doing broadcasting, whether it's for cable TV or anything, and are doing it, and can do it where you have that understanding of business and culture and esports. So with that, it's created more value for myself because I used to do work behind the scenes on a production team, because I did work for marketing. There are elements that I can bring to the table. And so with that, it's been so instrumental in terms of my coverage. And I think that the community really appreciates the angles that I go about, because I'm passionate about it, right? That at the end of the day, like if I wasn't passionate about this industry or gaming, I wouldn't do it. And I feel like passion, as long as you have that foundation of passion, it's so much easier to learn and to cover a scene that you're new to than if you don't have it.
And people are going to want to help that too, because if
Yeah.
they see you're like an encouraged point of view, they will want to give what they know and share, and it's a nice light. And I think for you, it's really kind of that foundation to me is just kind of you being that college athlete. Like it's all the same principles, you just apply it to something different. I want to talk about not necessarily a darker or a tougher time, but I do want to talk about when you're starting all of this stuff, when you're starting to maybe go from, you said a second ago, you did production work before, and that taught a lot of great lessons. But then the moment you jump into, I'm the presenter, I'm the personality, I'm the host. I know it's a cliche question, but just at least allow me to ask so you could tell me how that was with little bits of pressure. Like, I don't even think about this. We have a bit of a privilege as a male where we don't have to necessarily think about all the things. You know, looks, of course, are always important. I get it. But for a woman, I feel like, is there a tightrope that they sometimes want the woman to have long, beautiful hair and, all of these things? You spoke about being a woman of color. Did this stuff slow you down? Did this stuff even go through your mind? Or did you just plow right through it when you started all this?
I think when I started, yeah, I mean, I've had different, when I started in esports, a little bit different. When I started doing camera work, it was more so like on culture, music. And, there are companies that in their own way said that I don't fit the mold. And I understood what that was, whether I wasn't an IG model-esque, I wasn't blonde hair, like all this stuff, right? I wasn't super feminine. And the good thing about esports is that there are people that they don't really care about that, right? I won't say who, but there was someone, one company, they're kind of like traditional sports and esports, and they were trying to have me like look more femme, right? And at the end of the day, like, it's weird for them to even say that because I feel like I am feminine. Like, even though I'm tomboy, like I like to wear makeup. I got my hair dyed. I cut my hair to make myself look different. I always like to look presentable, but because I didn't look like what they typically know for as hosts, they thought that, okay, it may not work. But I'm the kind of person where I don't believe that. Like, I feel at the end of the day, you win people over by being yourself. And of course, looks do matter. So you have to be presentable. You have to have your makeup. You have to have your hair. But the people who win the most are the ones who are most authentic. Now you can't be that fake looking IG model looking esque person and have no personality. Like, I mean, granted, yes, that does help you with numbers and stuff, and guys may be in your DMs, but that's not the kind of attention I want. I want people to respect me first, then they can appreciate my looks. Then they can appreciate, like, the respect factor is the most important thing. So I always upheld myself in that way. And I said, you know what, I'm going to be myself. And of course I made adjustments. Like I said, I cut my hair. I even dyed my hair to make myself look different. Like I did things to stand out, and that's okay. You have to do that if you're going to be on camera, because that helps you with taking a level up. Right. And it gave me like an edgier look, and it gave me more of a hip look, which helps with esports and culture. And so that's why I did that. But I was like, I'm not going to be wearing dresses unless I have to. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm going to be wearing an Adidas jacket. I'll wear like leather pants and like stylish sneakers because that's just who I am. And the esports community is open to that. They respect that. They're just like, listen, as long as you respect our community, that's fine. I mean, and especially like there are people who have like edgy haircuts like me. There's people who are openly gay or are part of the LGBTQ plus community. There are people who, present themselves as just, I don't know, like a button down and glasses. Like, it's just, at the end of the day, it's like, do you know your stuff and do you care? And I've had, honestly, an easier time in esports and gaming than I did in culture and sports. And the funny thing is, because I'm respected and I'm appreciated by so many different people, especially higher ups and execs in the esports and gaming space, Now those same people that said I didn't fit the mold, now they're contacting me. Why? Because now they're looking to do esports and gaming content. And I'm one of the prominent faces, and even more specifically in the New York City area now. And so, and I don't,
and now her rate's gone up. Sorry.
Yeah, it has. It has. You gotta talk to my agents. But and listen, and that's not even me being cocky. Like, yeah, I'm gonna brush my shoulders off because a lot of people told me no. So yes, am I going to like when I'm saying that, am I a little bit flexing? Yes, I think it's good to be confident because especially when people have constantly told you no because of your looks or just like that you couldn't do it and then you're doing it plus more, you're proving people wrong. And I've always been that person, and that's my athlete side. Anytime anyone says no, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to prove you wrong. I don't sit and cry. I don't get upset because I get business. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I know what I'm great at and I know I'm going to be great. And I put in the work. I practice reading from teleprompters. I would film myself. I would do IG lives to practice keeping myself energized and talking and engaged for an hour. Even doing these live streams right now are helping me. And so I'm doing all this to get better at my craft because when I'm great at my craft, like what else, like what could you possibly say? That you're going to point out my looks? People who don't like me may say the N-word. Like what could you possibly say? You're going to point at everything else that doesn't matter. And you can't at the end of the day say that I don't do a good job. That's one thing my mom told me. Never allow them to say you don't do a good job. They could say everything else. They could say they don't like you or whatever. That crap doesn't matter. But never give them an opportunity to say that you're not good at your work.
No, it's true. And your passion comes across. I mean, even from the things that you tweet, I mean, obviously we had a great conversation when we did the project for American Latino TV, but there was something different and you had it. And I remember that day you were very busy too. So even in her tiredest moment, she still pushes through. I want to wrap out soon because I know you have a bunch to do, but on this particular platform, I like to talk about successes, setbacks, perseverance. Is there a major setback moment that you could recall that you love to look back now on and be proud of rising throughout that?
Yeah. 2018, this company, will not say their name, did not like what was going on with the company. They laid off a lot of us there, and I got laid off literally the day before I had hip surgery. And with that, I was out literally for the whole year. Like there's 6 months where I could not work. And then the other 6 months I had to find work. And it was stressful. Like I didn't have health insurance. I was at a certain point, I was only making like $2,000 a month. Like luckily I was living with someone. I had parents that were supportive and helping me through that. And of course I signed up for unemployment. So, and that was a moment too, where I realized you don't have to be ashamed to be unemployed. You don't have to be ashamed to be let go. It doesn't mean that you didn't do a good job. Like business is business. And I think during that time, that was when I became it's like I found a sense of calmness and peace. And I'm like, you know what, everything's gonna be okay. Like, you know what, instead of me trying to apply for all these jobs that I know at the end of the day are gonna make it a reason why like I don't fit their mold, I said, I'm gonna go for what I'm passionate about. And then that's when my friend Kyle Harvey, I used to do work for him. He's a managing director for the Shadow League. And we were talking, we always had conversations about culture and gaming, right? And he was like, why don't you write about this? Why don't you cover this? Like, he's like, there's not that many, there's only a few Black and especially Black and Latin women out here that are doing that. Why don't you do that? And I was like, you know what? Okay. So I did that. Then I started covering the NBA 2K League. And then he really pushed me. And he was like, yo, you should own this lane. And so at that time, I told my parents, I was like, listen, I know I don't have a full-time job, but give me 6 months. Give me 6 months and I'm going to land a job with like what I want to do, what I'm passionate about. And my parents were like, okay. Because I never was a kid who like, when I said I was going to do something, I always did it. I was never a kid where it was like my parents had to worry where it's like, okay, she's chasing too many things or she doesn't have a plan, or like I've always had a plan. I've always attacked things. And I was the kind of person growing up where if I wanted something, like if I wanted a job or career, or if I wanted to learn something, I went and got it and did it myself. And during that time, I had to learn how to ask for help. That was something that was a learning point for me. So when I started to change as a person and develop and progress as a person and become more comfortable with myself and be okay with myself during that time. And because of that, plus me chasing my dream, eventually, like in less than 6 months, I ended up at Cheddar Esports. And so that was a time where I realized that it's better to always go after your dream job than to go into a 9 to 5 just so you can be financially stable. And not to say that people shouldn't go do a 9 to 5. I think that it's okay to do a 9 to 5 if you're just trying to be financially stable enough where you can then pursue your dreams, right? Or if you have a 9 to 5 to save money so you can do it. You know, I never like when people crap on 9 to 5s, because I actually, when I got out of college, I took a job I didn't like just to set the my salary at a higher level than if I started in media. So I didn't start in media. I started at engineering architecture firm. So right out of college, I was making $50,000 to $55,000. So when I went into media, they couldn't go lower than that. They had to go higher than that. So so I strategically did that. I didn't like the job, but I did it so that when I did get a media job, I'm like, well, my first job, I got this. You can't get lower than that. And then I ended up, by the time I was 24. By the time I was like 24, I was already making 6 figures. And so that was all just like strategy and just, me making adjustments and doing what I need to do to get to where I need to go. But I think that 2018 was a struggle in so many different ways, not just my health and that, and just even personal life. It was a lot of struggles. And I realized that, I'm already at the low for myself. So you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to go after my dreams, and I'm going to go after my goals, and I'm just going to ask my parents for a little bit of help. And even if I even applied to like Chipotle, I applied to all these companies just so I can have enough money to then go get that job and then leave. And I think at that time, that's when I realized that, we always assume the worst, and we always feel like the worst is like the most horrible thing. But at the end of the day, when you're at the rock bottom, like if you're being productive and you're positive and you're working on yourself, like it's only up from there. Yeah. And so I literally was like, yeah, worse things can happen, but for right now, this is like pretty much the level I'm at, the bad level I'm at. And all I can see is the sky from here. So I might as well start climbing up.
As lame as it is and vulnerable and insecure, it's nice to have that noise turned off a little bit, because that is that dark moment where you can make good decisions. Like, wait, am I supposed to be going this way? Am I supposed to be going that way? It's sometimes only those dark times where you could really click into yourself. I always say, if you get a chance to get off the hamster wheel, take it. Get off the hamster wheel and then look up and say, like, did I really like what I was doing? Because there's always going to be money. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be success. There's always going to be setbacks. Wrapping out, a brief note on your podcast, and just you started that on your own, and just a creative thing you wanted to do just for fun, or how did that work?
Oh, so the podcast my friend and I created because we felt like there was a void, more specifically in the music media side. He worked in the music industry for a while, and then I worked in music media, and we felt like there wasn't a place for artists to really be themselves and to talk about tough topics and to talk about personal topics. And because we felt like there were certain media platforms that were chopping and screwing interviews, which I don't personally like.
What do you mean when you say chop? Like very clickbaity?
Like they'll edit videos and you can tell that it wasn't like a concise thing that was said just to narrow it down. And like if you watch the full,
same as you, I despise that. I think it's a cheap take. I feel like if you can get some great moments or bites, then good, then you got that Angie Martinez level. But if Howard Stern, but yeah, if you've got to manipulate it, I don't like that either. And that's why I enjoyed listening to you guys initially. Grassroots routes.
Grassroots. It's spelled routes, but it's grassroots. It's a play on word.
Well, I like that project, and I thought it was a really good place for you to just even gain more momentum. Wrapping out here, I have one last question, but before I do that, can you give me 2 names of people? They can be celebrities, but they could also just be people in your world that serve as a source of inspiration in some of the career things that you do. This business, there's so many moments where you could get lost in the sauce, right? And I want you to kind of highlight 2 people that you look at and say, gosh, they're really doing it right. Be it longevity, be it you see that they have principle or character. Who are 2 people that really shine, and why?
One of my friends, Rob Markman, because he's someone who I always say he's a young OG. So he's a young OG of hip hop journalism, and just how he's carried himself and how he's kind to people and how, he sets boundaries and gets really great quotes and works on putting out the great content. Like he's someone that even now, like even as friends, he still mentors me, and I see how he's making adjustments and how he's moving, and then even for him, how he took that step to chase his dreams of being an artist. I think that inspired me tremendously, and you know, and he's always been someone that has been supportive of me and guides me, and he gives me so many important lessons, or teaches me certain lessons in terms of just like how to deal with the business side of industries and stuff like that, especially being a nice person, right? And so he's someone that I really look up to. And then
he's got such a great story. We interviewed him twice on Latin Nation, the sister program of American Latino, and the kid rings enthusiasm. I think that's like the one word I'd give is like, he's very enthused in what he does. And that is why you go on that journey, be a journalist, that side, or the music. So yeah, that's a great person. And a lot of people enjoy his kindness. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and then who else? Honestly, so I think like this may not be a quote unquote big person, but it's a big person in my life, my mom. And the reason why is because, like, you know, with my mom's health and stuff like that, she's always taught me to make sure that you don't let work take over to the point where you're not enjoying life, you're not enjoying being yourself, you're not enjoying the loved ones around you. And I think that's so important. When you focus on the quality of life that you have, that energy will transform into the work that you do. And so she always makes sure that I focus in on making sure that I'm mentally, emotionally good and sound with myself, that I'm okay with me. And I'm learning to be more okay with me as I'm getting older, because, you know, when you're doing broadcasts, people always find ways to nitpick at you, to say stuff, to say you don't do your job, you know, and it's like, at the end of the day, they never know what goes on behind the scenes. And some of them don't even do any broadcast work, right? And so you have to, I wouldn't even necessarily say thick skin, but when you're more sound with yourself, that stuff doesn't bother as much. I mean, we're human. Now and then it pisses us off. But for the most part, I think that when you work on the personal side of things, that it translates over into your work. And that's something that she's always been, I've seen her do. And then I've also seen, you know, I've had conversations with her where she's helped guide me towards realizing that.
Yeah. I love these words. You're such a badass. I'm going to end on something that it may make you tickle a little bit, because I know you don't necessarily think the same as me, but because this particular platform is all about like motivation, dedication, career longevity, these are the stories I enjoy almost more than pop culture. But she is my queen, so I want you to tell me something cool or nice about J-Lo. That is how I end almost every show, Erin. I don't know if you love J-Lo like I love J-Lo, but tell me what you
Oh man. I
You can
mean,
be critical too. I don't care. We've talked off camera about this.
yeah, in terms of J-Lo, I think for me, that's a good question. It's funny because it's like, I don't necessarily, I don't criticize J-Lo, but for me, like, I don't, for me, I think she's not like the artist or the individual that I constantly look at. But what I can say is she is an investor in esports. So I thought that was cool.
Look, Erin knows how to answer the question and keep it all the way real. Thank you so much, Erin Ashley Simon. The best way to follow all of her work is probably through social media, because obviously if I named it, you got so many things that are moving and changing. So the social media handles or website is what?
At Erin A. Simon, ERIN as in Nancy, letter A, SIM as in mother, ON as in Nancy. And my website is the same thing, www.erinasimon.com.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for when we chatted for keeping it real, because I was that old fart who said, no, I'm only doing terrestrial. I'm never going to dip into this stuff. And you were one of the people that like kind of put a light bulb to that. And all these, I think it's a year and a half, 2 years later, and I'm like, oh, I remember some of those conversations. So kudos to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Keep up the good work, okay?
You too.